She's lived a lifetime, and he makes her feel 20 again. The story begins on a quiet Saturday afternoon in a small, sunlit cafe tucked into a corner of the city. Our male narrator, a 25-year-old with an easy smile and eyes that notice the little details others often miss, is nursing a cup of coffee while scribbling notes in a worn journal. He's observant, reflective, and slightly hesitant in social settings, the kind of man who feels more comfortable in the rhythm of thought than in the hum of conversation. She walks in like she owns the room without demanding attention. A widow in her early 40s, she carries herself with a quiet confidence that is unmistakable, straight posture, the subtle sway of her hair as it falls around her shoulders, and a natural grace that comes from years of living and learning. Her presence is magnetic but understated, like a warm light filtering through sheer curtains. She pauses at the counter, scanning the menu, and he notices the gentle tilt of her head, the small, thoughtful crease between her brows as she decides what to order. When she turns, their eyes meet for the first time. There's a brief, almost electric pause, nothing overt, just a recognition of another human soul, curious and open. He catches the faint perfume of her presence, a mix of soft floral notes with a hint of something deeper, warmer. The air feels charged, though neither of them says a word. The first touch happens almost by accident. As they both reach for the same copy of a book left on a nearby shelf, a collection of classic short stories, their hands brush lightly. His heart gives a subtle jolt at the contact. He notices how her fingers linger just a fraction longer than necessary, almost a subconscious acknowledgement of the connection. She smiles politely, a hint of amusement in her eyes, and he responds with a small, slightly awkward smile of his own. The cafe itself seems to fade into the background. The clink of cups, the hum of conversation, and the soft jazz playing from the speakers become a gentle soundtrack to this quiet moment of recognition. He can't help but notice the way she tucks a strand of hair behind her ear, the delicate curve of her smile, and the ease with which she carries herself. She radiates warmth and confidence, yet there's a subtle undertone of vulnerability, like someone who has loved and lost and is still learning to trust the world. They exchange a few words about the book, light and casual, yet every glance, every pause in the conversation, carries weight. He notices the way she studies him, curiosity sparking behind her eyes, and he wonders if she feels the same subtle pull he does. There is no rush, no overt declaration of interest, just a mutual awareness, a quiet acknowledgement of a connection that is, perhaps, the beginning of something profound. As she moves to order her coffee, he watches her from across the room, captivated by her effortless elegance. He feels a strange mix of admiration and nervous anticipation, a recognition that this moment, simple as it may seem, is the start of an emotional journey neither of them fully understands yet. The first encounter leaves them both with a lingering awareness, a sense of what if, and the unspoken promise of more moments to come. The key emotional takeaway for this part is curiosity mixed with admiration, subtle attraction, and the first spark of connection, all conveyed through sensory-rich observation, body language, and the quiet electricity of a fleeting touch. After their first accidental meeting in the cafe, the narrator and the widow find themselves encountering each other more often, almost as if the universe is quietly nudging them together. Their next meeting is at the same cafe, a week later. The sun filters through the large windows, painting soft golden patterns across the wooden tables, creating a warm, inviting atmosphere. He arrives early, pretending to be absorbed in his journal, but his eyes frequently drift to the door, hoping she might appear again. When she enters, he notices her immediately. There's an ease to the way she moves, a fluidity in her gestures that contrasts with his own tentative presence. She greets him with a small, knowing smile, a silent acknowledgement that their connection, however subtle, is being recognized. He stands, slightly awkward, and nods. The first words are casual, almost accidental, but they carry weight in the pauses and glances that follow. They sit across from each other, the small table acting as both a barrier and a bridge. She talks about her week, her voice soft yet engaging, sprinkled with little laughs that make him feel lighter than usual. He notices how her eyes crinkle slightly at the corners when she smiles, a small detail that somehow draws him in more deeply. He shares fragments of his own life, dreams, and thoughts, and she listens with genuine interest, leaning forward just enough that he senses warmth radiating from her presence. During the conversation, small gestures of intimacy emerge. Her hand brushes the edge of the table near his, lingering slightly longer than necessary. He catches himself tensing and relaxing at the same time, acutely aware of her proximity. She adjusts a lock of hair that has fallen across her cheek, and he notices the faint scent of her perfume mingling with the aroma of coffee and baked pastries. Each sensory detail, her laughter, the warmth of her gaze, the softness of her hand near his, builds a quiet tension that neither of them addresses outright. As they talk, he observes the subtle differences in her mannerisms. The way she tilts her head when she's thinking, the careful choice of words that hint at a depth of experience, and the gentle vulnerability that peeks through her confident exterior. He is captivated by the contrast between her elegance and the traces of longing he senses beneath her composed surface. In return, she notices his sincerity, the way he listens intently, the little nuances that reveal his youth and emotional honesty. Time seems to stretch. The cafe buzz fades into the background, replaced by the rhythm of their conversation, the rise and fall of voices, shared laughter, and comfortable silences. At one point, she reaches for her coffee cup and their fingers touch briefly. He notices the electricity in that fleeting contact, the warmth of skin brushing against skin. A quiet smile passes between them, unspoken acknowledgement of something delicate beginning to form. By the end of the meeting, they part with a lingering glance, a hesitant promise of seeing each other again. The emotional takeaway is clear. Their connection is deepening, trust and curiosity growing naturally, and romantic tension is subtly building. The audience senses the spark between them, a blend of admiration, gentle desire, and the safe intimacy of shared presence, setting the stage for the slow, deliberate development of their relationship. As their encounters continue, the connection between the narrator and the widow grows, moving from casual familiarity to a more intimate understanding of each other. This part of the story focuses on the first hints of emotional vulnerability, moments that deepen their bond and introduce subtle tension between longing and hesitation. It begins one late afternoon at the park, where the narrator had accompanied her on a walk after a brief coffee meetup. The golden light of the setting sun filters through the trees, casting long, warm shadows across the path. There's a quiet, almost sacred rhythm to their steps, the occasional crunch of leaves underfoot, the soft rustling of the breeze, and the distant laughter of children playing. For once, the world feels like it exists only for them. Their conversation drifts from small talk to more personal topics. He asks about her interests, but she slowly begins to reveal fragments of her past. She speaks carefully, almost hesitantly, about the years she shared with her late husband, not dwelling on the sorrow, but acknowledging the loss and the space it has left in her life. Her voice wavers slightly when she mentions her loneliness, and he notices it. There's a fragile honesty in her eyes that calls for empathy, and he feels a surge of protective warmth toward her. He responds gently, listening without interrupting, allowing her to unfold her story at her own pace. When she pauses, lost in thought, he instinctively reaches out, placing a hand briefly on her forearm. The touch is light, reassuring, not intrusive, but enough to communicate his support. She doesn't pull away. Instead, a small, almost imperceptible shiver runs through her, and she meets his gaze with a fleeting, grateful smile. That single, delicate moment speaks volumes. There is trust beginning to form, and a quiet acknowledgement of emotional resonance between them. As they continue walking, she allows herself to tease lightly about the contrast between her life experience and his youthful optimism. She laughs softly at her own vulnerability, and he can't help but be drawn to her grace and honesty. He notices the subtle ways she opens herself up, a gentle sigh, a lingering glance, the way she adjusts her scarf absent-mindedly as if inviting him to notice her small gestures. He reciprocates with a quiet attentiveness, nodding, smiling, and offering his presence as a steady, grounding force. There's a moment when they stop on a park bench, the world around them softening into twilight. She turns toward him, and he can feel her presence like a magnet. The air carries a faint scent of autumn leaves and her lingering perfume, mingling in a way that is both comforting and intoxicating. She speaks softly, almost confiding, about her fear of letting someone new in, of being judged, of navigating emotions she hasn't confronted in years. He listens, his hand resting near hers on the bench, a silent promise that he won't rush, that he will simply be there. By the time they part, there is a new dimension to their connection. What began as curiosity and admiration has shifted into a delicate emotional intimacy. Both feel the pull of something deeper, yet they tread carefully, aware of the age gap, the past wounds, and the subtle boundaries they are learning to navigate. The tension is quiet, unspoken, but palpable, a slow-burning ember of attraction tempered by respect and emotional honesty. The emotional takeaway for this part is the first significant emotional bond, trust, vulnerability, and the quiet realization that this connection might be more profound than either anticipated. It sets the stage for playful intimacy and the gradual building of romantic tension in the next parts of the story. After the emotionally charged moments of vulnerability, their relationship begins to take on a lighter, more playful tone. This part emphasizes the ease and joy of spending time together, showing that their connection is not only emotional but also fun and natural. The subtle romantic tension is still present, but it's tempered by laughter, shared experiences, and small, intimate gestures. The scene opens in a cozy little kitchen, where they've decided to attempt cooking together, a casual idea suggested by him, met with a slight, amused skepticism from her. The afternoon sun filters through the kitchen window, casting a warm glow over the tiled countertop and illuminating the steam rising from the boiling pasta pot. She wears a simple apron over her dress, and he can't help but notice the way it fits her frame, the gentle sway of her hair as she moves. The first moments are awkwardly charming. Flour dusts the countertop, and in a playful misstep, she flicks some onto his shirt. He laughs, a little embarrassed but entirely captivated by the sparkle in her eyes as she teases him. Their hands brush repeatedly as they pass utensils and ingredients back and forth, each accidental touch drawing subtle, almost electric awareness. She catches him watching her, and instead of withdrawing, she gives a knowing smile, as if silently acknowledging that she notices his admiration. They talk and laugh as they cook, sharing stories about childhood memories, favorite foods, and little embarrassing moments from their pasts. His youthful energy contrasts with her calm, composed demeanor, but it brings out a lighter side of her he hasn't seen before. She teases him about his meticulous habits, and he responds with mock indignation, making her laugh. The sound is soft but infectious, filling the space around them and creating an intimate bubble that belongs only to the two of them. There are moments of quiet tenderness amidst the laughter. When she struggles to reach a high shelf, he instinctively steps forward to help, their fingers touching briefly as he steadies her. She doesn't pull away. Instead, her gaze meets his for a heartbeat longer than necessary, a subtle acknowledgement of closeness. Later, as they taste the food together, their shoulders brush, and she leans in slightly, resting her hand lightly near his. Each touch, each shared smile, reinforces the unspoken connection growing between them. The scene transitions to a quiet walk afterward, the soft glow of sunset painting the streets in shades of gold and pink. They stroll side by side, shoulders occasionally brushing, enjoying the comfort of shared silence as much as their conversation. He notices the gentle sway of her movements, the ease in which she carries herself, and feels a deepening admiration. She, in turn, notices his attentiveness, the way he listens and observes, and feels a quiet thrill at the thought that someone sees her, not just her beauty, but her essence. The emotional takeaway for this part is joyful intimacy and playful bonding. The audience senses that their connection is deepening naturally, moving beyond curiosity and vulnerability into a shared space where trust, laughter, and gentle flirtation coexist. The romantic tension simmers just beneath the surface, built through meaningful touches, lingering glances, and the comfort of companionship. This part serves as a bridge, easing the story from emotional vulnerability toward heightened emotional tension, which will unfold in the next chapter as both characters confront the depth of their growing desire. By now, their casual encounters and playful moments have settled into something deeper, though neither is fully ready to acknowledge it aloud. The male narrator feels a growing admiration and affection for her that he struggles to contain, while the widow grapples with a mixture of excitement, fear, and hesitation. The age gap, the memory of her late husband, and the uncertainty of social perception all weigh heavily on her mind. This part is about internal conflict, unspoken desire, and emotional tension, laying the groundwork for the story's climax. The scene begins during an early evening walk along a quiet tree-lined street, the air crisp with the scent of autumn leaves. Streetlights flicker on, casting long, warm beams that bounce off the fallen leaves, creating an intimate, almost cinematic atmosphere. He walks slightly ahead, glancing back at her every so often. She notices the way he pauses, a hand brushing the back of his neck, and senses a hesitation, perhaps mirroring her own inner conflict. Conversation starts lightly, but gradually drifts into more personal territory. He comments on something she said during their last meeting, noticing a subtle sadness behind her smile. She pauses, her gaze dropping to her hands, and admits softly that some days are harder than others, that loss lingers longer than she expected. Her voice is gentle but carries a weight that makes him ache to comfort her. He reaches instinctively to touch her hand, just brushing the back of it, but she hesitates, pulling slightly back. The pull of desire and the fear of crossing boundaries clash visibly between them. Every gesture, glance, and pause is charged. As they walk, their shoulders occasionally brush, lingering slightly longer than accidental. The narrator notices how her breath catches subtly when their hands almost touch, and he struggles to balance restraint with the urge to show closeness. The widow, aware of the electricity of each touch, battles her own emotions, wanting to lean in, yet afraid of judgment or repeating past heartbreak. They stop at a small bench near a fountain, the water softly gurgling in the night. Silence stretches between them, heavy with unspoken words. He studies her face, the soft curve of her jaw, the warmth in her eyes, the way her lips press together as if holding back something unsaid. She meets his gaze, and for a heartbeat, it feels as if time has slowed. There is longing, mutual recognition of attraction, and yet hesitation rooted in reality. Their connection is palpable, but fragile. The emotional tension peaks in this moment. He wants to tell her everything, the admiration, the tenderness, the quiet desire, but the words stick in his throat. She wants to let him in, to allow herself to feel the pull toward him, yet fear and caution restrain her. Their shared silences, lingering touches, and subtle gestures, like a hand hovering near another, a slight smile, a pause in conversation, speak louder than words ever could. By the time they part that evening, both feel the weight of what is growing between them. The story's slow-burn tension is at its peak, longing, restraint, and unspoken desire intertwine, leaving the audience eager to see if, and how, they will finally acknowledge their feelings. This sets the stage for the emotional confession and intimate closeness in the next chapter. The tension that has been building slowly between them finally reaches a tipping point. By now, both the male narrator and the widow have experienced moments of laughter, vulnerability, and subtle longing. Tonight, under the gentle glow of evening lights in her cozy living room, everything changes, not through grand gestures, but in the quiet, tender acknowledgement of feelings they can no longer keep hidden. The scene begins with the narrator arriving at her home for an evening tea, the air outside crisp with the fading chill of autumn. Inside, soft lamplight warms the space, casting golden tones across plush furniture and shelves lined with books. There's music playing quietly in the background, a soft, melodic tune that seems to mirror the gentle rhythm of their hearts. She greets him at the door with a smile that's both familiar and intimate, and the moment their eyes meet, there is a shared understanding that this evening might alter the course of their connection. As they sit close on the couch, he notices the small, subtle details, the way her fingers curl slightly around her teacup, the warm glow of her skin in the lamplight, and the soft rustle of her hair as she leans toward him to hear a word more clearly. Conversation flows easily at first, punctuated by light laughter and teasing, but gradually, a pause falls between them, a quiet, heavy pause filled with anticipation. His hand inches closer to hers, hovering above the armrest, and she meets his gaze. In her eyes, he sees vulnerability, longing, and a deep-seated fear of moving too quickly, of losing control over emotions she has carefully guarded for years. Finally, she speaks, her voice soft but unwavering. You make me feel 20 again," she admits, a confession that hangs in the air like fragile glass. The weight of her words sends a shiver through him, not just from desire, but from the realization that she trusts him with a part of herself she has not shared with anyone else. He responds gently, with the honesty and warmth that have become his hallmark, telling her how much he admires her, how her presence has changed his perspective, and how he cares for her more than he expected. There is no rush, no frantic embrace, just the careful unfolding of intimacy. He reaches out, placing his hand lightly on hers. She allows it, and their fingers intertwine naturally, a quiet confirmation of trust and connection. His thumb brushes across the back of her hand, a gentle, grounding gesture, while she leans slightly toward him, resting her shoulder near his. Their faces are close now, eyes meeting in long, lingering glances that communicate emotions words cannot fully capture. The room seems to shrink around them, leaving only the warmth of their shared presence. The faint aroma of tea, the soft music, and the golden lamplight combine to create an intimate cocoon, a safe space for vulnerability. They speak little, letting touch, eye contact, and gentle smiles convey what both their hearts are shouting. At this moment, desire and tenderness coexist in perfect harmony, romantic, respectful, and profoundly moving. By the end of the evening, both feel a deep emotional resolution. They have crossed the threshold from subtle longing to open acknowledgement, without needing to rush, overstate, or sexualize the moment. The emotional takeaway is a heartfelt confession, tender physical closeness, and the realization of mutual romantic desire, setting the stage for a serene and fulfilling resolution in the final chapter. The story reaches its final chapter, a moment of emotional resolution where the slow-burn romance finds its tender, fulfilling closure. After weeks of subtle glances, playful teasing, emotional vulnerability, and finally, heartfelt confession, the narrator and the widow are no longer tentative. Their bond has grown into a quiet, profound intimacy, a connection built on trust, mutual respect, and the shared joy of simply being together. The scene opens on a late afternoon in a small city park. The leaves are painted with the soft colors of early autumn, and the golden sunlight filters through the trees, casting warm patterns on the pathway. They walk side by side, close enough that their shoulders brush gently with each step, but neither feels the need to speak immediately. There is a comfortable silence between them, punctuated only by the occasional sound of rustling leaves or distant laughter of children. Their hands occasionally graze, and each time, a subtle spark passes, reaffirming the connection they have nurtured. As they approach a familiar bench near a small fountain, the narrator slows down, glancing at her with a soft smile. She meets his gaze, her own eyes reflecting warmth and quiet happiness. He reaches out slowly, and she places her hand in his without hesitation. The gesture is simple, yet it carries a universe of meaning, trust, desire, companionship, and the acknowledgement of shared feelings. Her fingers intertwine naturally with his, and their hands rest together, gently warm, a silent promise of togetherness. They sit on the bench, letting the soft murmur of the fountain and the rustling leaves become the backdrop for their closeness. Occasionally, she leans slightly toward him, resting her head gently on his shoulder, feeling the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. He responds instinctively, draping an arm around her shoulders, offering both comfort and a sense of safety. Their faces are calm and relaxed, their smiles subtle yet radiant, reflecting the depth of connection they have cultivated. Conversation flows lightly now, a mix of shared memories, playful banter, and gentle plans for the future. There is no rush to define the next step. This is not about grand declarations but about the quiet, everyday intimacy that comes from truly knowing another person. She brushes a strand of hair from her face, and he notices, his gaze lingering with affectionate admiration. Every small gesture, touch, glance, smile, is amplified by the depth of emotion between them. The emotional peak of this resolution is the peaceful certainty of their bond. The story emphasizes the beauty of a slow-burn connection, the way desire and affection can grow naturally, the way vulnerability can become strength, and how shared moments, simple, quiet, human, can create lasting intimacy. Their age difference, once a source of hesitation, now feels like a natural complement to their unique dynamic, highlighting the contrast of youthful energy and lived experience. As the sun sets, casting a warm glow across the park, they stand, still hand in hand, and walk slowly toward the path that leads back to the city. Their steps are unhurried, hearts aligned, a gentle understanding passing between them. They are together, secure in the knowledge of their feelings, and ready to face the future side by side. The story closes on this serene, tender note, a satisfying emotional resolution where love, respect, and trust define the relationship, leaving the audience with warmth and the sweet ache of a romance fully realized.